clay is a really great equalizer in that way of like, that, yeah, everyone's just sort of like, this is weird, like kids, adults alike. It's just like, wow. I think everyone's always really sort of either taken into it or sort of like, wow, this is like too much.
Hey you, welcome to Done Not Perfect. My name is Shelby Abrahamson and we are here in the Foxsy studio and we are joined today by our guest, Emris Christopherson, a clay artist based here in Chicago. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Like Shelby said, I work in clay here in Chicago. I teach at a couple different studios around the city and make my own work, and I'm trying to build up my brand, Emris.
Awesome, Emris. I like that name. Is that based off of something?
It is. There's kind of a cute little story behind it. So when I was younger, my family and I would travel to Door County like once a year just for vacation, Door County, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And we stayed in a house that was kind of right off of the lake, and there was a spring nearby that would kind of trickle down the beach and feed into the lake. And I just really liked playing around there. So my dad and I would just change the sand and like get the direction of the spring going a different way. And there was one year that we created just like a little lake or river, and we named it Emris, like Emris, because my dad's name is Chris, my name is Emily, and so we combined our names.
That is so sweet.
Yeah.
I was over here thinking it was something like Egyptian, or it sounds kind of Egyptian to me.
I think it's a Greek name. I found out awkwardly because we actually hired an intern at one of the studios that I worked at whose name was Emris, and they were like, oh my gosh, and I was like, my name is not actually Emris. I feel like a poser.
No, but that's a really sweet story for how that name came about.
Yeah, it just kind of stuck around. Like it was, we had used it for a couple other like informal things, like our Wi-Fi password, or and it was just something that
just grew from there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a really I didn't expect it to be such a wellspring of a literal wellspring of childhood inspiration. That's beautiful. Yeah. So, how did your creativity manifest when you were a kid?
I think it was just something that was kind of always there. I kind of was always just like drawn to doing things with my hands. So my earliest memories of just like making art and working with clay was with my mom working with like polymer clay at our kitchen table. And so we'd watch like HGTV. Like I have very specific memories in the summers when I didn't have school, waking up early and watching like the craft women on HGTV making like little polymer rounds and then cutting them and then laying them flat. And so it was never sort of like I want to do art or like I want to work with clay, but it was just kind of always there.
The curiosity was
always. Yeah.
So were your parents creative as well? Like do you come from a line of like other artists or creative folks? Because it sounds like they were very engaged and supportive.
Yeah, definitely. My mom like flirted with the idea of being an artist for a minute, and was like, "Yeah, no, I don't think this is for me." But I would agree that she's very creative and kind of like that comes very naturally to her. And
well, it comes out in so many different ways, not just in the traditional like drawing, painting, music, and sculpture kind of way, but it comes out in so many different ways. So even if it doesn't like the notion of being an artist wasn't like quite fitting, I bet she was a very creative person in her own unique way.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it takes someone who understands creativity to nurture a creative kid, like that, like being able to sit down and play and do things even if she didn't feel super like engaged with that specific thing. She was doing it with you, for you. I think. I don't know, I wasn't there, I'm just speculating.
No,
I just think that's really cool.
And I think too, like I haven't talked to this with her or talked about this with her, but I feel like maybe at the time the idea of what an artist was a lot more narrow. It was somebody who was showing in galleries. Like it was a very specific type of art, and I think that knowing that, I can see that how that just like wouldn't align with like who she is. And same, like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, the definition of artist, I think, has really expanded and grown since the internet's kind of come to maturity. It's opened up so many opportunities for people that wasn't there before. Because I was the same way. Like when I was growing up, I was the art kid, and people were like, "Oh, you should go be an artist," and I was like, "And do what? Be poor? Like, no, not going to do that." Like, because it was either you made it or you are a waiter who tries to do your best and you can't do it. And so I had a very narrow definition as well, and I'm really glad to see how much it's expanded and grown in the last 20 years or so. And I'm hoping, or our hope is to like try to continue that expansion by having conversations like this, because it comes forth in so many different unexpected ways. But when did you first kind of start getting experiences with like throwing clay, like throwing on the wheel?
Yeah, aside from like the plastic craft store wheel that my aunt got me when I was like 10 years old, I got introduced to the wheel in high school. And so the high school that I went to had really, really amazing resources. I feel very lucky to have had that experience as young as I did. And yeah, it was my freshman year, I think. I ended up, after I took sort of like the core class, I ended up taking the wheel throwing class. And again, it was just sort of like, that seems cool. Like, I want to check this out. And took a class, really enjoyed it. Didn't necessarily see myself like, I guess like I did see myself taking other classes, but it wasn't something that I was super like, this is it about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And one of my friends who was in the class had signed up for the summer session, which was not for credit, and so it was more just like you get to come hang out at the studio. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I don't really want to wake up that early to come be at school over the summer. But my teacher at the time was telling me about it. He was like, oh, it's really, really fun. We do this special, it's called raku firing.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah. And so there was just, he kind of talked it up, and my friend was like, do it with me. And I was like, all right, why not? And I think that summer was really the summer where it was like, okay, this is
awakened something.
This is the thing. And I think the people that I ended up around too played a big part in that, just like the community that I found within doing all of that helped too.
Really quick before we move on, can you just tell just a quick snippet of what raku firing is? Just because I feel like we can't dangle something that fun and then not say what it is.
Definitely. So it's a Japanese technique. We do it a little bit different here in the West, but essentially you take the ceramics and you heat it up like you normally would. The difference being with a normal firing, you would then let the clay cool slowly over a period of time. And with raku, kind of at that peak temperature that it's hitting, for us it was like around like 1800 or 1900 degrees. You take it out and then you put it into combustible material, which then helps the clay trap carbon. You get a lot of really interesting metallic effects. And yeah, some people will just take it straight to water. It's intense, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some videos of it on like Instagram of people putting like feathers or horsehair to get like these wild organic patterns. It's crazy. If you've never seen that, you look it up. Raku firing, super cool.
It's very fun.
Yeah,
and
ceramics is a wild craft. Like there's just so much. It's fascinating to watch. Like I've only like dabbled in it here and there. But I follow a lot of creators online who do it, and it's just such a beautiful art form to watch.
Yeah.
I can see why you fell in love with it. It's gorgeous.
There are so many like avenues too of like there are people who only do raku firing and are like experts in raku, and it just feels like the more you kind of learn about what options there are or ways of making there are in clay, it's just sort of like, holy cow, like
there's options.
There's a lot. Yeah.
So you did ceramics throughout high school. You did the summer session. At what point did you decide to go to art school?
My second year of undergrad. So I went to, when I graduated high school, or kind of like in the conversations around like, all right, what's next? I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I think I was also nervous to be an artist because I had that very narrow idea of like, okay, well, I like need to like be really conceptual and creative. I just didn't feel like that was like, I don't know. I didn't feel like I would be able to do it. And so I ended up going to University of Minnesota, which was a big state school. I had lots of different avenues of options that I could kind of go down. And so went in undecided and yeah, just tried like a couple different things. Just knocked out my gen eds.
Smart.
Yeah, and ended up taking a couple art classes. And I think there was a couple experiences throughout my art classes where it's just like, I had really profound moments with teachers who were just kind of nudging me like constantly. Like I had this one professor, it was my first semester in sculpture, and I'm not sure if he was serious or like this was his way of just being like, join the art program. But every time he would come around and check in with me, I had my own tools, or like, I would bring like clay tools, and he would be like, oh, they give these to the students like who are on scholarship for the BFA program. Like you're in the BFA program. And I was like, oh no, like I'm still undecided. I'm still kind of like trying to figure stuff out. And he was like, oh, okay. And it would be like
gentle little nudges.
Yeah, he'd be like, so you're in the BFA program, right? Like every time it was just always like, so you are an art major, and I was just like, no. But I was sort of like, okay, well if this guy thinks that I am, or is like giving me these hints of like, you should be.
Yeah, it seems like less of a question and more of a, you are an art major.
Yeah, and I think at some point he was just sort of like, well, I think you should consider doing this. And I was like, all right, that means something. And so yeah, so I landed on art. I would say maybe kind of like halfway through my second year of school. And that's when I was looking more into art programs kind of outside of the University of Minnesota, which, looking back, it's interesting that I left what was a very historically like functional ceramic world at University of Minnesota. There's a lot of just like history of functional potters in the Midwest, and then like alley-ooped into SAIC, which is a very conceptually based art program. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting decision, one that I don't think I really thought, I don't know, not that I didn't think a lot about it, but school, or sort of like, I think it was all still very fresh, right? I was still kind of figuring it out. I think I was leaning back on this idea of like, well, if I am going to do clay, am I going to make it being a functional potter, or am I going to make it exploring these more conceptual ideas through gallery work and showing that way? And so I think that's with a lot of other things happening, kind of where the transition to SAC came in.
So just to be clear, when you're talking about functional potters, are you talking about like throwing like plates, bowls, like utilitarian, beautiful perhaps, but utilitarian style stuff, rather than like art pieces that are meant to be beautiful, like, and not functional?
And
right, okay, exactly. Just making sure I understood you there.
Exactly, yeah. And then once I got to SAC, it was sort of like, I really like making pots.
And there's no shame. Pots are cool.
Yeah. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, what were you when you entered SAC? When you got in, when you started, what were you at that time kind of hoping you would grow into or accomplish with art school?
Yeah. Again, I don't really know that I had an idea.
Just going off of your gut.
Yeah, I don't know. It was, but I also think that was like a moment where I was trying to fit a mold that didn't necessarily make sense for me. So like, right, going back to the idea of like, well, I'm going to explore sculpture more and like not forget about, but sort of like put that to the side. We'll explore bigger, larger ideas, gallery-based work. And I think if anything, my time there kind of like solidified, like, no, I actually really do like making pieces, and there is a place for that too. So yeah, I didn't have an idea. Or I had kind of an idea that was, I think, different than what was true to me, if that makes sense. I will say that the one thing that I was specifically looking for out of my experience at SAIC was more time to physically make. So at University of Minnesota, the program was structured in a way that I think once I calculated it was like 2/3 were gen eds and 1/3 of my time was art classes.
Okay.
And it was because it fell under the College of Liberal Arts. And so a real appeal for me to SAIC was that it was flip-flopped. And so
I don't blame you.
by the time I got to SAIC, I had done all my gen eds and all of my time was studio classes, which was really, really nice. Looking back on it was like exhausting, but just having that time to kind of create and like do things again and again, I think was what I wanted, and I think a really beneficial part of that experience there.
Yep, I can see why that was appealing for sure.
Yeah.
But also why it was exhausting. Pottery is, from my limited experience, one of the more physically exhausting styles of art.
My back hurts.
Yeah,
all
it
the
is.
time.
You got to be kind of built. Like I admire potters who like, especially like who make bigger pieces. On the wheel itself is just like, I could barely wrangle a 1 pound mound of clay. So I've seen people like make huge things with like 5 pound, 10 pound lumps of clay, and I'm like, wow, I don't want to get in a fight with you. But what would you say is the hardest part for you?
I would say that like the element sort of loss in it, or like that element of it not working out sometimes can be really frustrating, I think, and like frustrating for different reasons as you go throughout the learning process. In the beginning, it's just frustrating because it's like, I just want to make something that like works out, that I can be proud of, or I spent so much time on this thing and it didn't happen the way that I wanted it to. And then it's sort of, as I've worked my way into trying to make a living off of it, it becomes frustrating in the sense of like, I just lost like
revenue.
This whole batch. Yeah. I just lost revenue. I lost time. People, in some cases it's an order that somebody's waiting on something for. So that can be really tricky. And outside of that, I would say just like the physical element of it. I wish that was something that I think was covered a little bit more in classes, and it's something that I've been trying to kind of think about how I can incorporate. It's just how to like properly take care of your body through it all, because there are small things that I didn't realize were kind of adding up until I got to the point where it was like, ow.
And it gets worse year after year. Like I don't know how old you are, but I am now approaching 30, and I'm having that realization with like drawing, is that I realize that I sit like a freaking goblin so often. And I'm now having to, I'm right now like focusing on trying to do like yoga for my neck and for my posture, and trying to like build the muscles that I need to hold myself properly upright, because it's killing me slowly. And I can definitely imagine like you'd have the same thing of like potentially hunching over, but also you've got your entire upper body is engaged. You've got your hands and your wrists. There's a lot of care that needs to be taken, especially with like building muscle memory, to make sure you build the proper muscle memory, so you're not accidentally like grinding your bones to dust. It floats away into a pleasant little state. It's a beautiful place to be. I could definitely see like why, like getting your hands in there and just being in the process. It sounds meditative. It really does.
Absolutely.
Well, you've been teaching clay or pottery. Would you say you're teaching clay? Is that a weird way to say it?
Teaching ceramics, I think.
Teaching ceramics.
Normally,
I questioned myself when I wrote that down. You've been teaching ceramics for a long time now, and it's inevitable when you teach that you learn from your students. It's kind of a give and take process. So what would you say that you've learned as a teacher, like from your students? What's something that you've kind of like gained over time?
I would say just the mindset of like being adaptable. I think I can be just naturally a little rigid. And so sometimes there have been times where I come in with a plan or an idea of how like I want to present something or like what we'll be doing that day. And it's just sort of like, all right, this is not like what you all need right now. You know what I mean? So yeah, just having flexibility and kind of approaching each person different or having to sort of stretch the way in which I explain something or how I show something has, yeah, really, I think changed how I kind of approach people just in general even, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that would be the biggest thing that I've learned is just that adaptability and kind of problem solving, especially quickly too, where it's just sort of like, all right, this isn't clicking for you. Like, let me figure out how to like reframe this so that it makes sense.
And that is definitely a skill in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because I've had so many teachers over the years that were like, clearly they knew what they were talking about. They clearly are very good at this subject, but they're not good at teaching it to other people.
Yeah.
Because the teaching is very much its own ability. Because yeah, that adaptability, that being able to listen and respond and adapt and you know, go back and forth. Because everyone learns a little bit differently, right? Like, everyone has their own little eccentricities that make them a unique student.
And I think some people are good about like asking for what they need, and then others, you really have to kind of figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I fell into teaching in a way that like I had no experience up until I was in the classroom. I was just kind of learning as I was going. And so that has been a tricky part of it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
As you've been working with, because you've worked with students, like you said, like moved around and did a lot of different schools, kind of moved around the city. But then you also have, do you also do like classes like where people come to you? Like,
Yeah.
so you've taught kids and adults, right?
Yes.
What are some common struggles that you found students have? And is there a difference that like adults, like different struggles that adults face that kids don't, or vice versa?
Yeah, I would say clay is a really great equalizer in that way of like, I think because a lot of people haven't worked with it in a way or don't have an existing relationship necessarily like you would with drawing or painting, what you would typically have done like in school, right? That, yeah, everyone's just sort of like, this is weird, like kids, adults alike. It's just like, wow. I think everyone's always really sort of either taken into it or sort of like, wow, this is like too much. But it's always sort of, there's something so immersive, I think, about throwing on the wheel for the first time, or even just working with clay for the first time. You know, you're like, there's this tactile element that is just kind of, I think, unmatched in some ways. And I would say one difference, though, between kids, so I've worked with like elementary school age, I've worked with teenagers, and I've worked with adults. I think that kids are oftentimes just really happy with whatever turns out. And that varies from kids to kid, but they're just excited to try it. And I think adults put a lot more pressure on themselves to end up with a product that they had in mind. So I think they're a lot less open to the initial sort of like, we just have to practice, rough through it, and like you're not necessarily going to be good at it from the get-go. And again, varies depending on the person and their kind of mindset coming in. But I think that oftentimes teenagers will feel that way too. But they're kind of in the middle, right? They're sort of like, there's this insecurity element that just comes from being a teen.
Yeah.
That
Right.
like never goes away with anything that you're doing. But they're still kind of in the structure of being open to what's around them and receiving things and like kind of understanding that like, okay, I need to practice something before I can be really, really good at it. And so I would say that's the biggest difference teaching adults is just that sort of like, I want to be good at this thing right now.
Yeah, that sort of impatience with the rough stages.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I've seen that a lot also with like drawing and painting side of things, teaching people is adults tend to get in their heads and have
Yes.
higher expectations for themselves, whereas kids seem to be a little bit more just gung-ho to just get in there and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not surprising to hear,
Mm-hmm.
but it is frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
Like being like, just keep pushing, you're good,
Yeah.
keep going, because it's there is definitely the rough stage. That's a rough one. So, how did you know when you were getting into ceramics really for the first, when you were a teenager and kind of getting into it? At what point did you feel like you had sort of evolved out of that rough, ugly stage and kind of became a little bit more intermediate? Like, what did that feel like to you?
Yeah, I would say it. I would say first that stage happened many times. Like there was not just one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you're sort of like, oh, now I'm good. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, now I'm good.
Right.
So
You got to do it a couple times and then get knocked back a peg.
yeah.
Be humbled by you try something and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then try again.
But I feel like it just like you reach this moment where you're kind of able to sit down and make the thing that you wanted to with intention, right? Like it's no more sort of like, oh, well, let's just see what happens, or like going with the flow, which I think can be really valuable. But being able to sit down and kind of control the outcome, I think was what I felt as like that next kind of intermediate stage. Yeah, and it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's definitely a difference in like drawing. There's a difference between like sitting down to draw and seeing what happens, which is great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's something different from that to like planning out like a painting.
Yeah. Yep.
Playing with different color palettes, exploring composition, and then actually sitting down and doing it. It's definitely a much more intimidating process, but it's very validating when you plan something out and then execute it, and it comes out somewhat close to what you were hoping for.
Yeah.
Can you think of like any particular pieces that you've done that you kind of did that? You had that like intentionality going into it, and then it turned out.
I would say probably the first big project that I did with intention was like the first full dinner set that I made. And that was like, I think that was the one, it's notable in my mind of like, oh, that was cool, you know?
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Handmade dinner plates and bowls. Do you have like, did you make your current set of dishware that you have at home?
My current set of dishware is a hodgepodge of honestly mostly seconds of mine. I don't have necessarily the first, but the ones that are like aren't too like, what am I trying to say? The ones that were not good enough to sell, that I'm just sort of like, this can still be used in my house. And then a mixture of that and every other person that I love that I've, you know,
collect
bought things
other
from.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's especially like enjoyable as someone who knows all the makers of the things that I'm like eating off of. It's kind of fun. You can be like, oh, it brings back the memory of that person, and I feel connected to them even though you're not with them.
Yeah, I love that, especially about ceramics, because it's utilitarian. You can't really quite do that with paintings exactly, you know, like it's cool being able to use something for a purpose and also have it be a beautiful piece of art. I just think that's such a cool like combination of things that there's other types of art that certainly do that, but definitely not my type of art, not the stuff that I make. So I just think that's really neat. So we talked a bit about like the rough stage and kind of just like getting through it. You talked about having even like your seconds that you use at home. So how do you embrace imperfection in your work?
Ooh, I would say I'm not great at that. Like I said, I tend to be a little bit rigid. I think a lot of the satisfaction for me of my work comes from something that is really like thought about in every part. And I think I embrace maybe the imperfection, or I would maybe say more of this idea of like less control over the outcome maybe in the like prototyping stages, or when I'm having fun just like exploring an idea, rather than like the final product. I do kind of want to be pretty tight, even though like I'm a person who's making all of them. Like not everything's exactly the same size, not everything's exactly the same shape. There are variances, but Yeah, I hold on to that idea maybe more than is good.
Well, can you talk a little bit more about the process versus the product?
Yeah.
Like just about what the distinction is to you, because they can be two different things. The process of like getting into it versus it's a literal product that you're wanting to sell.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of like deal with the difference between those two?
I think it happens kind of naturally. I think I'm at a point too where I think it comes very easily. The idea of like thinking through a thing and then being able to kind of create it and have it turn out how I'm envisioning. But I'll normally start by kind of sketching ideas out and working through basic sort of like form and proportions, and then take it to the wheel. And from there, things get sorted out even more, right? Like that just sort of takes it to a different place. And oftentimes I'll find that I kind of land on a form or land on something that I'm liking, and it continues evolving even as I'm producing it, right? So like, I'll be like, great, I like this cup shape, we're gonna make this cup shape, but the more and more that I make it, like you can look at the very first cup or the thing that I'm basing it off of, and then look at like the 100th version of it, and they're different, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's a certain element of the repetitiveness that brings the product to what it is in a way that you can't always force. And I think that's maybe an area where I embrace that like imperfection or the less rigid element of it, where it's like I'm not working from a mold, even though that's very good and valid, but there is still an element of the hand, and there's this element that kind of is out of your control.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
To be a little bit more true to who I was. Like, going back to that idea of sort of like, this is the only way an artist can be. Or I think a lot of the times I would try styles that weren't exactly mine because I admired them. And that I think is also a very good way to work through like a process, like trying something that you aren't good at, mm-hmm. Or doesn't come naturally to you. But I think, I forced a lot of ideas that I had about how I should be as an artist, rather than just kind of feeling what felt right.
Like for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Can you tell us where people could find you online?
Yes, so you can find me at emrisceramics.com is my website, where I've got a shop. You can purchase some items. And Instagram is at Emris Ceramics.
Awesome. And do you have any like markets or anything coming up?
I do not have anything in the works at the moment, actually. Yeah, I've got some items that are up for sale on the website that are made to order. And I'll be just kind of posting stuff here and there, probably in the month of February, but I'm hoping to gear up in the summer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to thank you for taking the time to join us here and talk to us about your process and about your experiences. You're the first ceramicist that we've had the joy of talking to, awesome. And I'm just really excited because I love that field so much. It's such a cool area of creativity, and it's so literally hands-on, and I think it produces some absolutely stunning work, and your work is gorgeous. If you haven't already in this video gone and looked her up, go look her up. Her work is amazing. But yeah, I think that this wraps up this episode of Done Not Perfect. I'm your host, Shelby Abrahamson. This is Emily Christopherson here in the Foxsy studio, and we just want to remind you that your creativity matters. Catch you later.